Road Trips and Missing Persons by Adriana in the Snow. Roman and Remus piled into Janice's car to head to the grocery store. It was pulled into Remy Gates' driveway and only a few feet away, whereas Roman had parked down the street, and Remus had likely parked somewhere nearer to the park. Not that Roman cared to get into that death trap. His father and Remus had built it together when Roman and Remus had been 14, and Roman loved them both dearly, and Dad was smart, but he wasn't an engineer or mechanic, and Remus was a beacon of chaos. It did not matter that the car had managed to hold up for almost 10 years, whereas Roman was on his third car. He would still never trust the damn thing. Ever. Janice's car was the exact opposite of Remus's. Roman wasn't very good with cars, but even he could tell that it was an expensive one, that was likely not constructed by a teenager and his dad in a garage, with no dents or rust, and it still had that new car smell when he got inside. Roman could probably buy his apartment complex for how much money this thing was worth. Yet, despite that, Remus seemed familiar with the car. He hopped straight into the passenger seat and started pushing buttons, the functions of which Roman did not know. One thing he did understand was the dials for the radio, and that when Remus tapped the saved radio station under the third slot, it switched to Remus's favorite channel. Remus then leaned back against the seat and put his feet up on the dash. "Why do you have to be like this?" Janice asked, sounding exhausted the moment he entered the driver's side door, and the very intense bagpipe music met his ears. He reached into the car to slap Remus's calves. Remus didn't move them, but just smiled. "It's P-Rock Day," he said happily. Janice shook his head and moved to sit down. He yelped immediately and shot forward on the seat. "You turned on the seat massagers?" "Of course I turned on the seat massagers, Jay." "Oh, I don't want those things on." He started pushing buttons himself. The hazard lights came on, as well as the windshield wipers, and some beeping started up. "Ugh, Remus! How do you turn these things off?" He slammed a hand against the dashboard, and the lights in the back suddenly were blinding Roman. "Stupid piece of scrap metal!" Remus batted his hands away and put the car to rights again rather quickly. Janice mumbled a couple more curses under his breath, but didn't do anything more as he put the car into reverse and started driving down the street. "Okay," he said once they were moving, his creepily calm attitude back in place again. So this was Remus's partner? Roman, of course, knew a bit more about what Remus did than most of the other people in the agency, considering Remus was his brother. Not to mention they were both the sons of Logan Sanders, so if they wanted to talk about anything when they got together to have dinner every other Saturday, it was probably going to end up being about the covert spy operations everyone went on. Dad pretended not to be a gossip, but at the end of the day... So, Roman knew that Remus was a triple agent. He pretended to spy on Dad for Barbara Nelson when he was actually spying on Nelson for Dad. Roman also knew a bit about his partner. Remus had even let slip the nickname Jay a couple of times and talked affectionately about him. Janice was a double agent, turning on Nelson to work for Dad. However, Roman had not been aware that Janice was Nelson's son, a fact which he'd surmised since Janice said that his mother killed Remy. Which was... Obviously, Dad had to know that information, and trusted him enough to take his word as a double agent, but it still gave Roman a bit of pause. Not to mention, he was clearly a cold and efficient liar, which served to put Roman even more on edge. The only thing keeping Roman from insisting they leave him was the way he acted around Remus. Remus had provided the only cracks in his carefully constructed calm but vicious front. Every time Remus did or said something Remusy, Janice would give him one of those fondly exasperated looks that only Remus could provoke, and they seemed to be more than just partners, but friends. So, Roman was going to trust him for a moment, attributing the roughness to his missing brother. "What's the plan?" Janice asked when they pulled into the grocery store's parking lot. "I have an FBI agent ID," Roman said. "I can go push for information at the front desk." Janice nodded, and his fingers tapped twice against the steering wheel before he stopped the nervous tick. He might also hide outside the store. There is a small creek behind the store he used to go get muddy in. Maybe he will be less likely to run from me, and I know the area, so I'll check there. Remus can check inside the store while you ask around. "Okay, that works," Roman agreed. "Meet back at the car afterwards?" Janice nodded as he pulled into a parking spot. Remus slapped Janice on the shoulder before exiting the car and got a scowl at his back in return. Roman shook his head and followed them out of the car. Janice separated from them a few feet before the door to the grocery store, and Remus and Roman entered the store together. "I'ma check out the store," Remus said. "Okay, don't do anything stupid," Roman said as he walked away. He got a flippant wave in return. "Remus, don't do anything stupid, please." And he was gone. Roman shook his head and turned, searching for the front desk. He reached for his wallet and smiled at the employee in the front desk. "Hello, ma'am," he said. "I'm looking for someone, and I was hoping you'd help me." He pulled out his only sort of fake FBI ID to show her. "I'm looking for a teenager who has gone missing and is connected to a case, and we have reports that he may have come in here. Perhaps you've seen him?" Roman said. He took out his phone to show her the picture of Virgil that he'd been sent, only to find that his screen had been cracked and it wouldn't turn on, likely damaged in the fight with Janice. Great. He looked back up to the woman. "I apparently don't have a picture to show you at the moment, but you've possibly seen him before as he lives in the neighborhood. Virgil Gates?" He got a blank stare in return. Fantastic. He spent another 15 or so minutes trying to explain to the woman who he was looking for, a difficult task, as all he had to go off of was the memory of one picture that he'd been sent an hour ago, and getting shrugs and apologies in response. Eventually, he left and looked around the store for a bit himself. His brother was suspiciously absent from everywhere Roman looked. Eventually, he wandered back to the front by himself, only to see Remus coming from the checkout with a bag full of snack foods. Roman crossed his arms. "You were supposed to be looking for a missing minor, not shopping." "Chill," Remus said, making Roman want to do the opposite of chill. "I looked for the kid and shopped at the same time. I even got Cheetos." He smiled widely as they left the store. "Also, I broke into their security office." "You what?" Roman asked. "I broke into their security office," Remus repeated happily. "And why," Janice asked tiredly while walking up to them, "did you do that?" "To get the security camera footage, duh," he said, pointing at a camera near the top of the door. "I figured he might not have gone inside, but the neighbor said he headed in this direction, so that thing probably saw him." "That's actually pretty smart," Roman said, "though we probably could have just asked." Remus shrugged. "Luckily, they apparently saved security footage to a cloud, and I was able to download it pretty easily. We should be able to see everything that happened inside and outside the grocery store in the last 2 hours, assuming you've got something to watch it on." Janice nodded and led them back to his car where he took a laptop out of his trunk. Remus downloaded the footage and then handed it over to Janice. "You'll be able to spot him best, since you know what he looks like better than us." It took almost 20 minutes of Janice watching the surveillance photo for him to find what he was looking for. "Got him," he said. Roman leaned over to get a good look at the screen. The video feed was a bit blurry, but he could see a lanky teenager with dark hair running to the grocery store parking lot. He took a break when he got there and looked behind him, probably to make sure he hadn't been followed. Then he found a bush to hide behind. They watched for a few minutes until he finally hopped back up and started walking toward a car. "What's he doing?" Roman asked as the boy on the camera glanced around himself to make sure nobody was watching before starting to fiddle with something. "Oh, God," Janice groaned. "Why did I teach him to pick a car lock? Emil was right." They watched as he managed to pop the door open to the stranger's car and slipped inside. Not even 5 minutes later, a man with grocery bags got into the front seat, though it was too blurry to see who he was or the license plate on the car. The car drove out of the parking lot after a few more minutes. "God damn it, Virgil," Janice hissed, and Roman barely saved the laptop from crashing to the ground. "Now he's just in the back of some random person's car." He started pacing back and forth, steam practically pouring from his ears. Roman was almost scared for Virgil when Janice managed to find him because he looked ready to commit a murder. That was over an hour ago. Who knows where he could be right now? What could have happened to him by now? And Roman realized, he wasn't angry. Not really. He was terrified. "What the hell am I supposed to do?" He kicked the car fender, leaving a dent, and then kicked it again. Then a phone rang in his pocket and he froze, all emotion draining off of his face startlingly quickly. Roman was confused because he was pretty sure he'd seen Janice step on his phone earlier, but the one he pulled out now was a different type. He glanced at the caller ID and said, "It's my mother."